Welcome back to the deep dive. We are shifting gears today. Usually we're looking at the macro, historical events, big biographies, global trends.
Big picture stuff.
Exactly. Today we're going micro. We're looking at something you probably spend, 8 to 10 hours a day staring at, but arguably you don't actually see.
Mhm.
We're talking about the cockpit of your computer. We were talking about Windows configuration.
It sounds a little dry when you say configuration, but I think the cockpit analogy is spot on.
Right.
Most people treat their OS like a car dashboard.
Right.
They know the steering wheel and the gas pedal, they click the browser, open a document, and that's it.
Right.
But if you actually want to, fix the engine, you need to understand all the switches and dials underneath.
And that's our goal today. We're taking a technician's view of this. This isn't just how to change your wallpaper. We're digging into the architecture, the war between the control panel and settings, and the nitty-gritty of power, security, and files.
The mission is really about moving from being a passive user to an active administrator. So you can customize your environment, secure your privacy for real, and understand all that legacy code that's still humming along under the surface.
Let's start there with that legacy code, because it explains so much. I mean, you look at the history of the interface, and it's a wild ride.
It really is.
You have the primitive days, Windows 1.0 back in '85, but the real shift, the moment the DNA of the modern PC was really written, that was Windows 95.
Oh, yeah. That was the paradigm shift. Before 95, Windows was just a box of icons floating in space.
No structure.
None. Windows 95 gave us gravity. It gave us the start button, the taskbar, the whole My Computer concept.
Yeah.
It basically set the muscle memory for the entire planet.
And we coasted on that design for almost 20 years. Windows 98, XP, Windows 7. They were all just polished versions of 95. But then we hit the Windows 8 era.
Ah, Tile World.
It's just fascinating that Microsoft tried to break its own mold so aggressively, they removed the start button. They forced this tablet interface on desktop users. It felt like they were telling us how to use computers instead of, listening to how we actually use them.
It was a classic engineering mistake, optimizing for a future that hadn't arrived yet. They thought everything would be a touchscreen. But if you're at a desk with a mouse and keyboard, giant full-screen tiles are just inefficient.
The backlash was immediate.
Of course it was. It broke that 20-year-old workflow. People would click the bottom left corner and poof, nothing happened.
So Windows 10 and now 11, they feel like an apology tour. They brought the start menu back, cleaned it up. Windows 11 centers the icons, softens the corners. It's all very slick.
Frosted glass, yeah.
But here's the interesting part to me. Despite all that cosmetic surgery, the skeleton, it's the same, isn't it?
That is the single most critical thing to understand as a technician. The GUI, the graphical user interface, it changes like fashion. It follows trends. But underneath, the kernel, the driver models, the file structures, they're incredibly durable.
Which is why you can sometimes run software from, the late 90s on a Windows 11 machine?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Microsoft is obsessed with backward compatibility.
Right.
They just build new facades over the old plumbing.
Which leads directly to the biggest headache in modern Windows, the Great Divide.
Settings versus the control panel.
This drives me crazy. If I want to change my screen resolution, I go here. But if I want to change a printer driver, I end up somewhere else entirely. Why haven't they just fixed this?
Because it's like trying to renovate a house while people are still living in it. You can't just tear down the kitchen.
Right.
The control panel is that legacy interface. It's been there forever.
It looks like Windows 7.
It basically is. It talks directly to the older parts of the system. It's where you go for the heavy lifting device manager, administrative tools, advanced network stuff.
And settings is the new shiny layer they draped over the top.
Exactly. Settings is built for the post-iPhone world. Lots of white space, nicely categorized. System, personalization, gaming. For 90% of your daily tasks, it's fine. It's probably better.
But it doesn't have the depth.
Not at all. And Microsoft keeps moving things over bit by bit. But we're 10 years into this transition, and we still have two houses.
So for a technician, you can't just learn the new stuff. You have to be bilingual.
You have to be.
Yeah.
You might start in settings to check a network, but the second you need to set a static IP, you'll probably get kicked over to an old control panel applet. And in Windows 11, navigation's changed again. There's no home page in settings. It's all on the side.
Okay, so let's talk about what we're actually configuring in there. Accounts. When you set up a computer, you get this choice. Administrator or standard user. And nobody wants to be standard. It sounds like a downgrade.
And that ego is exactly what hackers exploit.
Hmm.
In security, we have this core idea, the principle of least privilege.
Which is basically don't give the janitor the keys to the bank vault.
Or, more to the point, don't give yourself the keys if you're just browsing Reddit. An administrator account can do anything. It can change system files, install software.
So if I'm surfing the web as an admin and click a bad link,
That malware inherits your admin rights. It can do anything you can do. It can wipe the drive.
easily.
Oh, easily. But if you're a standard user, you can't change system settings. So if that malware tries to install itself in the core Windows folder, the OS just says, nope, you don't have permission.
So paradoxically, the most pro move is to use a standard account for your daily driver.
It is. It's the safest way to operate.
But let's be real, it adds friction. Every time I want to install something, the screen dims, I get that pop-up.
That's UAC, user account control.
It's annoying.
That annoyance is a feature, not a bug.
Yeah.
That dimming screen is a secure desktop mode. It's forcing you to pause and actually acknowledge that something is trying to change the system. It's a gate with a buzzer. Yes, it's annoying, but it stops strangers from walking into your living room.
Fair enough. Now, what about the identity of the account? Local versus Microsoft accounts. Windows really pushes you to sign in with an email.
They push it because data is the new oil. A Microsoft account syncs everything to the cloud. Your wallpaper, your Wi-Fi passwords, browser history. It's incredibly convenient.
You buy a new laptop, sign in, and poof, your digital life is there.
Exactly. But there's a huge trade-off. You're handing the keys to your privacy over to Microsoft.
And the local account is the old school way.
Right. It exists only on that specific hard drive. It's air-gapped from the cloud. But if you forget the password, there's no forgot password link. You're just locked out.
Okay, speaking of privacy, that whole privacy settings menu has just exploded recently.
It's shockingly granular now. You can control permissions for your camera, your mic, your location, app by app. But the one most people miss is the advertising ID.
That sounds dystopian.
It's pretty standard practice. Windows gives you a unique ID to track your usage across apps to serve you targeted ads right in the OS, like in the Start menu.
Wow.
So if you're setting up a machine for privacy, turning that off and dialing back the telemetry, the diagnostic data, that's step one.
I want to pivot to a section that I think gets ignored because of its name. Ease of access or accessibility. We just think, oh, that's not for me. But there are some real productivity hacks in there.
Absolutely. I always argue accessibility is just another word for customizability. Take high contrast mode.
Which usually makes the screen look like a neon arcade game from the 80s.
It's pretty stark, yes. But if you're a developer staring at text for 12 hours, that stark black background with bright yellow text can seriously reduce eye strain.
What about sticky keys? I always trigger that by accident when I'm gaming.
Everyone hates that pop-up.
Hmm.
But think about it. If you have to hit a complex shortcut like Control-Alt-Shift-S sticky keys, lets you press them one at a time. It serializes the input. It's a workflow tool.
And now there's eye control.
Right. With the right hardware, you can navigate the OS just by looking. That's not just accessibility. That's the future of how we interact with these things.
Okay, let's cop the hood. The file system. This is where technicians live. And the notes say Windows basically lies to you by default about what's on your computer.
Lies is a strong word, but yeah, it obfuscates. By default, Windows hides system files and critical folders like app data. Logic is, paternalistic. If you can't see it, you can't break it.
But if I'm troubleshooting, I need to see it.
Exactly. If a user's profile is corrupted, the logs and config files are almost always hidden in app data. You literally can't do your job without going to the View tab and checking hidden items. It's a prerequisite.
And there's another checkbox right there that just terrifies me. File name extensions. Why on earth is that off by default?
It is the single biggest security flaw in the default configuration. By hiding the extension that the .docs or the .exe-windows relies on the icon to tell you what the file is. But icons can be faked.
Give me an example.
Okay, so a hacker writes a malicious script. They name it report.txt.exe. They give it a notepad icon. If your computer is hiding extensions, Windows strips off the .exe. All you see is a file named report.txt with a notepad icon.
So I think it's a text file. I double-click it.
And you just executed a program. You're infected. If you had extensions turned on, you would have seen report.txt.exe and known immediately something was wrong.
The text file shouldn't be executable.
Exactly. Turning that on is the first thing I do on any new machine, period.
Let's talk performance. We all know that feeling when you hit the Windows key, start typing, and it finds your file instantly. But sometimes it misses things. That's the index, right?
Right. Windows has this little librarian inside called the indexer. It crawls your files and builds a database. But this comes at a cost CPU power and disk activity.
So if my computer's running slow, could that be the culprit?
It often is, especially if you plug in a huge external backup drive. Windows sees it and thinks, ooh, new data, and just starts trying to read everything. Your fans spin up, the whole system grinds down.
So what's the pro tip?
Go into indexing options and exclude those backup drives. You don't need instant search for archive data, and you save a ton of system resources.
Okay, power management. This seems simple, but the difference between sleep and hibernate still confuses people.
It's the difference between a nap and a coma.
Okay, break that down for me.
Sleep, that's the S3 state, is a nap. The computer keeps a little bit of power flowing to the RAM to keep your session alive.
So my open documents are just floating in memory?
Exactly. Wake up is instant, but it drains power. So if you leave it in sleep mode in your bag over a weekend, it's dead on Monday. And if the battery dies, all that unsaved work is just gone.
Right, and hibernate.
That's the coma, the S4 state. It takes everything in RAM, writes it to the hard drive, and then cuts power completely.
So, zero battery usage.
Zero. You can leave it for a year, but waking up takes longer because it has to read all that data back off the disk.
What about this modern standby? My laptop sometimes gets hot in my bag even when it's supposed to be off.
Yes. The curse of modern standby. Microsoft wants PCs to act like phones. When you turn off your phone screen, it's not really off. It's still getting email, updating apps.
And modern standby does that for laptops.
It does. It lets processes run while the lid is closed.
Yeah.
The idea is when you open it, your email is already there. But if a process gets stuck in a loop,
The CPU just keeps running and you pull a melting hot laptop out of your backpack.
it's a controversial feature, to say the least.
We're almost out of time, but we have to talk applications. We used to just have programs. Now there's store apps and desktop apps.
It's about security and stability. Store apps are sandboxed. They live in a protective bubble. They can't easily mess with system files. And when you uninstall them, they vanish cleanly. They're safe.
But the desktop apps, the ones we download from the web, are the Wild West.
They are. Traditional Win32 apps, they integrate deeply, they spray files everywhere. But there's a third category to watch out for. User context apps.
Is that like when Chrome just installs itself without asking for my password?
That's it, exactly.
Okay.
Apps like Chrome, Zoom, Spotify, they figured out if they install into your personal app data folder instead of the system-wide program files, they don't need admin rights. It bypasses UAC.
That sounds convenient, but really dangerous.
It is. It means users can install software even if IT tried to lock the machine down. It creates shadow IT software running on the network that admins don't even know about.
And to manage that, we have the firewall. Most people think it's just about stopping hackers from getting in.
That's inbound filtering, and it's critical. But for a deep dive, you have to think about outbound rules.
Why do I care what goes out?
Because that's how you catch malware that's already inside. If a little calculator app is suddenly trying to send data to a server in a foreign country, that's a huge red flag.
Oh.
Outbound rules stop your data from being stolen.
And finally, just nerd out for a second, WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux. 10 years ago, if you said Microsoft would build Linux into Windows.
People would have called you crazy.
Yeah.
Steve Ballmer once called Linux a cancer. Now, Microsoft loves Linux. WSL lets you run Ubuntu or Debian right alongside Windows. It unifies the development world.
It's a peace treaty.
It really is.
So we've covered a lot. History, settings, security, files. It's so much more than just using the computer.
It is. Mastering the machine means understanding that tension. You have to balance convenience like using settings and sleep mode against control, using the control panel, hibernate, and strict firewalls.
And there's no single right answer, just the right configuration for what you're doing.
Exactly. A gaming PC is configured totally differently from a bank teller's kiosk. The power is knowing which levers to pull.
You know, we mentioned unhiding files to troubleshoot. I want to leave everyone with a thought that's a little unsettling. If you go home today, turn on Show Hidden Files and navigate to that app data folder we talked about. Just take a look around.
You're going to find folders for software you uninstalled 5 years ago.
You'll find cached images from websites you visited once, logs, history files. It's a digital archaeological dig of your own behavior. And it's a good reminder that just because you can't see the file doesn't mean the system isn't remembering exactly what you did.
A perfect reason to understand the cockpit, not just fly the plane.
Couldn't have said it better. Thanks for diving in with us. We'll catch you on the next one.